Hello everybody. Um, Welcome to part 2 of Valiant Hearts. Sadly, the first 4 minutes got lost of this recording, so I just read a few of the facts. I'm gonna read them to you again, just so you know, okay? 6 million prisoners of war. Between 1914 and 1918, over 6 million men were taken prisoner, including 1.2 million German and 200,000 British troops. Despite the 1907 Hague Convention and the efforts of the International Red Cross, prison conditions and forced labor proved harsh for conscripts, and hundreds of thousands never made it home. Letters. Letters remained the only real means of communications with the outside world. Radios and telephones were only used for military ends. All soldiers wrote to their loved ones back home. As war correspondence was free of charge, this created logistical and financial problems. 10 billion letters and postcards were sent to and from the front during the war. The early war postal system was chaotic, but then the front was then separated into sectors, each with its own postcode. The visit from the military postmaster was eagerly awaited. So before this, we gave this dog a bit of water, and now the British are shooting at us. Oh shit, run, 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 run. And now comes my favorite part in this game. It's a bit grim, but left out. One.
Merci.
Good old world. I really like him. Wait, how do I... Oh, yeah.
Schwander Nichtlingsster, blunder Klump.
What? Schwander Lichtklump? Okay, I guess that's a word. Grab that.
Oui, bullshit.
Good dog. This level it really looks very grim, but that's what this game is supposed to be, I think. Come on, come on, come on. The Battle of Neuve-Chapelle, March 10, 1915. British shells literally rained down on German forces. For the first time, the technique creeping barrage was used. A barrage where the fire of all units targets the same position for a period before advancing one line at a time. The infantry's advance was synchronized at a safe distance behind this barrage, so that German lines could then be overrun. That day, 530 cannons fired over 216 shells. That is to say, 1 shell per weapon every 2 minutes. I just call that a storm of fire.
Right.
Valiant Stories Contest Memorabilia. Lace Titan are made by Corporal Lucien Dufourmantel, great-grandfather of Benoit Thiederes. From a melted-down cartridge case, Lucien served as an electrician in a searchlight division whose mission was to illuminate enemy positions. Many thanks and congratulations to winner Benoit. I have never heard about that contest, sadly. The music is a big part of this game.
Merci.
Crucifix. The majority of soldiers believed in God and some wore symbols of their religion. War officers had to make provisions for different religions, and a variety of religious ceremonies was performed at the front by different faiths. Priests, vicars and rabbis offered succor and compassion to soldiers. Muslim soldiers from colonies were organized into separate battalions for practical reasons, and their beliefs were also respected. Halal food was provided as well as Muslim funeral services. Yeah. No. There we go. Compass. Soldiers used compasses to gain their bearings in open countryside. They were used in conjunction with the HQ map. Orienteering was the reserve of officers and non-commissioned officers, who issued soldiers with directions. Come on, there we go. Oh no.
What? Okay. What?
I don't think jeeps are that big, but okay. And that's early on the other side.
The British troops continued their attack on Neuve-Chapelle. Their next objective, take back Port Arthur.
Sir. Yes, sir. Come on, boys. Let's go.
And now it's time for some historic storytelling. The Garwal Rifles. In the early 20th century, Great Britain and France governed huge colonial empires and put them to use during the war. Indian troops were deployed by Britain in the Middle East, as well as on the European front, and made an important contribution to the war effort. Many victories were achieved thanks to their bravery and discipline in combat. A monument commemorating their sacrifice stands in Neuve-Chapelle, France. Oh shit! Okay, I almost forgot that. Mud. Trench life was difficult. Soldiers were confronted with cold, rain, and mud. Dirty water meant that diseases such as dysentery, typhus and cholera flourished, but depth of the mud also presents dangers, and soldiers sometimes drowned in shell holes or in tunnels leading into the trenches. Only thing I'm gonna say about that is no one ever wants to drown in mud. Come on! Shit. Machine guns. French coins. All troops were paid in their country of origin's currency and paid compensation in local currency. The British earned 1 shilling a day, around 3.21 GBP, or 5.42 US dollars in nowadays currency. The standard King's shilling and 20 francs every fortnight. These 20 francs had a face value of 40 pounds, roughly 50 euros, 70 US dollars, and were used as the main currency with the locals, eager to barter whatever few goods they could trade. Business always prevailed, so locals near the combat zone would agree on payment in foreign currencies as well. Well, I guess you gotta live with what you can get. Let's just take a moment to enjoy this music. I love this puzzle, especially because so many people struggled with it back in the day. Explosives. Trench fortifications required the use of explosives to penetrate enemy lines. Long tunnels were dug under no man's land, beneath enemy trenches, inside which explosives were placed. The English used cordite, a powerful explosive that could be detonated at a distance. Good idea, you don't want to blow yourself up. I guess. I'm just gonna open something up real quick. Okay, there we go. Okay, let's continue on. And here we have our last item, the Kukuri knife. The Kukuri knife was used by the Gurkhas, the British unit comprised of colonial Indian troops. The Nepalese weapon was standard issue and became a symbol of the Empire forces. Its heavy, thick and curved blade was designed for striking as well as cutting. I personally like Kukuris. Help? Yes.
Merci, mon ami. Tout règle. Baron Von Dorf. Yeah, comme
I love this game. Not gonna lie.
Amidst the never-ending attacks and counterattacks, Freddy and Emil hunted the elusive Baron and his regiment in Ypres.
Oh god, I hate this. I mean, I technically I like the game completely, but the element of gas, I
On
know,
April
even though it was
22nd,
real.
1915, chlorine gas was used for the first time by the Germans.
Vas-y. Go, go,
go! New diaries, wonderful. What a day! My life was saved twice today. First by an American soldier and then by a dog. I think it was the other way around, but okay. But I'm free at last. I saw Carl before the bombing. I hope he made it out alive. I'm going to try to find him. Wait. I missed him by a whisker. It won't happen again. My younger brother's letter was sweet. It gave me a real boost. It's good he's back in the States. Miles away from this nightmare. That kid has a knack of getting himself into trouble. On the march to Belgium, where this damned regiment is stationed, I'm not alone at least. I met a funny old French farmer guy, Emile. Doesn't say much, but if I understood right, his son-in-law is German. How crazy is that? Not a day goes by that I don't dream of you. Emile, there, right in front of me, sprawling on the ground. Why did his regiment have to come up against mine? I hope he pulls through. He's one tough cookie. I must find out what POW camp he's taken to. At last I found Emile. Just moments before the shells started flying. I hope he's managed to dodge the bombs. The letter he showed me filled my heart with joy. Marie is well and Victor is growing up. That's all that matters. Today the Germans invaded Saint-Mihiel. Fortunately the troops spared the farm. I took shelter in the cellar with Victor. Now what's going to happen? Who knows? Who knows?
Get out of here.
Wait, before we do that, just... there we go. Canadian identification tag. At the start of the war, Canadian identification tags were formed by a large aluminium disc, which was because they were an emergency issue and had a unique shape. They were soon replaced by standard British tags, as were those of all British Empire forces. I mean, hey, why not? Okay, let's get Wolf down here.
What? Allez.
On top of there. No, get it down here.
What? That way. What?
And here we see the evil gas generator, which obviously existed. Urine-soaked cloth. The only defense against a gas attack before gas masks were introduced was to cover the nose with a urine-soaked handkerchief. Urine reacts with chlorine directly in the handkerchief to form less noxious products, limiting the effects. It was not the most hygienic solution, but it was always better than a lungful of hydrochloric acid. Yeah, probably. Oh, not up there. Down again. There we go. Wait, let's see. Now this is good. I think, like, Sword shouldn't be standing there.
What? What? What?
There we go.
Yeah. Come on, man. Emil.
It's probably not the best to stay down here for long.
Emil,
Okay, sure. But first we'll go up here because I'm gonna try to get every single item. There we go. Letter from a Canadian soldier. Dear parents, we are in Belgium. A truly flat land that reminds me of our Winnipeg plains. The big difference is that it's so damp here, which makes the cold even colder. The guys and I are going to make you proud of us. The Canadians will be the big heroes of this war. I'll write again soon. Steven. Yeah. So, funny story about this game. I actually played it, the entirety of the game about, like, 5 times, I guess. Because that's what you do. And now they're dropping gas on us. Run, run, run. Gas canister deployment strategy. Gas canister deployment strategies were simple, but they did depend on the weather, especially on winds. Gas use required a constant downwind towards enemy lines to avoid the gas returning to its sender. Any battle plans were therefore dependent on weather forecasts. And we also have a bit of story here. The Battle of Ypres. The Ypres was a key strategic town in Belgium, especially for the British. It was the gateway to the north and thus to Britain. Canadian troops were deployed in the front line, and they proved their endurance and dependability in combat to the Allies. 6,000 Canadian lives were lost in the battle in April 1915. Wait a second. Belgian Charcot. The Belgian army distinctive Charcot resembled a top hat with a rim placed by a visor. The Charcot was replaced by the Yser cap, a soft cap with flaps that could be pulled down over the ears. The cap was called the Yser because Belgian soldiers massed behind the river Yser to hold off the German advance. Sure.
What?
Okay, get in there.
What?
Do that.
Help me, Emil!
Zeppelin bombardment. Zeppelins were invented in 1900 by the German Count von Zeppelin. But the first long-distance flight didn't take place until 1908. Zeppelins weren't much slower than the aircraft of the period, and were first used in reconnaissance. They could also fly at higher altitudes. So from 1915 they were used to bomb civilians in London and Paris.
Thank you, my friend. Can you help? Don't worry.
It's so much easier to understand what they're saying now with headset. Pocket watch. Time was an important factor in soldiers' lives, and military strategies for attacks and rolling barrages were based on tight chronological synchronicity. Pocket watches were the only way to tell the time. And now we're being bombarded again, and that dog should not be alive. After that. Come on, come on, come on, come on. Stun the button. Okay, and since I forgot to read the other two facts, first gas attack. April 2nd, 22nd, 1915, as Euclid came the first gas attack in history. 5,730 cylinders of chlorine were opened by the Germans in favorable winds. Chlorine gas causes burns to the eyes, skin, and lungs, even through clothes and rubber boots. The effects were devastating. The only defense found by the Canadians was to cover their noses with a urine soaked handkerchief. The dogs of war. It is estimated that by 1918, the Germans had employed 30,000 dogs, while the Allies had employed 20,000. Dogs were recruited from doctors and the police force. While many families also enlisted their pets, dogs had a number of roles, as sentries and scouts, in postal liaison, and equipment transport, in locating casualties and explosions, and as mascots. The main breeds deployed were German Shepherds, Dobermann, Pinschers, and Bouviers. Nice.
Her name was Anna, a Belgian student living in Paris. She was hard on the trail of her missing father. For once, fate smiled on them. They were all going in the same direction. But while approaching Vimy, a German squadron spotted them.
Time for a very nice part of this game. It's Von Dorf. Oh no. Wait, there's mines up there. Oh shit! I did not remember that part. Oh come on, I could damn it. I could have gotten an achievement for that.
Ça va aller, allez. Emile, allez!
This is one of the most difficult levels. Well, it's not that difficult, but
Merci, well. Allez, vas-y.
I still love how the guards don't even take notice of like something just exploding there. You know, let's get over there real quick. I really don't like this part of the game. Periscope. To observe enemy trenches without drawing fire, officers and soldiers use periscopes, mirrors mounted in a tube that could be raised above the parapet with no risk to health. Is the game calling bullets a risk to health? Okay, apparently these guys... Jesus! Oh, damn it!
Vas-y. Allez, oui. Allez. Hey, ici. C'est bien, c'est bien.
Well, let's continue. And let's do it. Fast. Come on. Infantryman's flask. Soldiers frequently suffered from thirst, and water supplies were far from regular. All soldiers had canteens in which they transported water, and also wine. Some also had flasks or goat skins, which were less heavy to carry. I love the music in this game. The Labyrinth. Vimy and Neuve-Chapelle. Vimy and Neuvy-Saint-Va were two positions the Germans were quick to fortify. Here they built the Labyrinth, a complex network of trenches and tunnels. Connected to underground sleeping quarters, Allied armies unsuccessfully attempted to seize this key position on numerous occasions. Due to the huge number of casualties in late 1915, the position was declared impregnable. Oh my god, I almost ran into that machine gun. Let's continue.
Allez, vas-y. Stürzen! Hallo, Fuß,
The game really doesn't make you feel good for killing. By the way. Vital of Nevrostenine? I don't know how to pronounce this. To combat problems of morale and physical fitness, army doctors sometimes distributed insert the word here, injections, a composite of magnesium and potassium, and intended to give weary soldiers a hearty boost. Yeah, why not?
Right, that way.
And I think now it's time for the most ridiculous part of... well, this part of the game, because... in all honesty, if you blow something up with this amount of dynamite and they don't notice it, that's a bit ridiculous. The trenches! Jesus. Can you stop firing? I want to read something here. Okay. The trenches. Between the sides there was an imbalance in trench conditions. After securing a head start in trench construction, the Germans reinforced them with iron and concrete, while the Allies had to wallow in mud. The Allies' changeover policy maybe contributed to this. Allied soldiers had 7-day shifts on the front, whereas German soldiers were allocated a specific zone for an indeterminate period, giving them a chance to settle in. Well, I guess the only option is to go in here. Wait. Not gonna let that happen. Letter from a German soldier. 21st of April 1915. Dear Andrea, we've been stuck down in this hole since January. I can't stand it anymore. I'm sick to the back teeth with living like a rat. I really miss my life as it was before, strolling beneath the linden trees with you. I even miss working in the factory. All my love, your Dieter. I thought there was a collectible here, but guess I was wrong. Okay, I wanted to throw it behind him, but I guess I just threw a bottle of wine at his head. Not the friendliest thing to do, but... Tin of sardines. Soldiers were all fed by their respective armies. But they also received parcels from back home to improve their daily lot. tins of fish or pate gave them a more copious nutritional meal than their daily army fare. I mean, a piece of bread a day isn't like the best.
What? Anyone? Hey, what? Hey, what? What? Hey, Patty. Hey, what?
British coins! While the war raged on, life continued and the economy too. The war economy was composed of both barter and currency systems. Soldiers purchased provisions in towns using their pay. In 1914, the pay of a British private in a line regiment was 1 shilling a day. The standard King's shilling, obligatory deductions were made for a wife and children, 6 pence for the wife and 1 pence a day for each child. Nowadays, 1 shilling has the estimated purchasing power of about 3.21 GBP, 5.42 US dollars. That's actually pretty nice, I guess, for a day. In 1971, the shilling was replaced by the 5 pence coin, thanks to decimalization. That's how you open doors. You just sort of move your hand. Okay, we did it. We have all of the items. Wait a second.
Hey, Patty. What? Hey, what?
Well, so apparently if you shoot here, you actually hit them. But what if you shoot at the Zeppelin? That shot just goes through. What if you shoot at this? The shot goes through. But what if you shoot at the machine gun? The shot goes right there.
Baron Von Dorf had escaped again, but Emil had still managed to find medicine for Freddy.
Thank you, my friend.
They were quickly back on the road again. Their journey would take them to Reims, where they would at last pick up the trail of the elusive Baron and his Zeppelin.
I... So, we're gonna have a hard time with this part of the game, sadly. But I'm gonna finish this episode. Okay. 1870. Nice. Oh god, run, run. Just running is the best option. Okay. Okay, nice. Okay, so he needs a lever. They need to find the kid. And I'm gonna read you a historic fact. Reims Cathedral. I don't know. The city of Reims suffered during the war. September 1914, as the Germans retreated from the city, they set fire to the cathedral. Then, as the city was so close to the conflict zone, it was bombarded by zeppelins and cannon fire. During the bombardments of the statue of Jean of Arc in front of the cathedral lost a hand before it was dismantled and stored in the catacombs. By the end of the war, only 1,500 inhabitants were still living in Reims. I think I heard something about Reims that it was called the Martyr City or something because it suffered so much. Okay. Let's move and find some good stuff. The home front. With practically all able-bodied men mobilized at the front. Women, children and the elderly were employed in factories to ensure weapons production. Women took on traditional male jobs. Some even held positions of responsibility. This new role changed their status in society, and in the wake of the war, women over 30 years old were given the vote. The Women's Institute held its first meeting in 1915 with the aim of encouraging women to become more involved in food production during the war, and the movement flourished. I'm gonna read you a historic fact now. Early gas masks. While gas masks were in more widespread use on the front, they were also available to civilians, and in French towns close to the front, like Reims, they were fairly common. This early model was one of the first composed of a cotton compress doused in a neutralizing solution and applied to the mouth and nose, similar to the British Black Veil. Don't worry, you are being saved. And now we're gonna get War Godmother Certificate. To improve morale on the front, an association was created in France in early 1915 to provide secure and support from behind the lines for soldiers without close families. The War Godmothers sent letters and parcels, forming close relations with their godchildren away from the front. What are we fighting for? Okay. Can you help me? Yes, he says we. But no, you take this. Now we need him. Allez. Wait a second. Oh, nice. What's this? Overalls. Practically all able-bodied men were mobilized at the front, but production still had to carry on. Women took over men's roles in factories and in other traditional male positions, working for much lower salaries. Some even held positions of responsibility and were involved with decision-making. This new role changed women's status in British society. And I'm gonna be searching for the next item for a bit of a longer time, because I want to get everything out of this game.
What? That's it.
And I have found all 100 items before, but I'm gonna do a 100% run.
Hey, what? Mama. What?
Safety razor. The safety razor was an early 20th century invention and shaved more safely than barber's blades. In 1917, safety razors were standard issue in the US soldier's kit, because it had been noticed that gas masks provided more effective protection to shaved faces.
Save me.
Yeah. Having a beard is now illegal. And now we're gonna search for the last item. We need to get... Ah, there it is! Oh, you need to dig it out, but first we have to get walled for that. Wait a second. Let's
What?
dig up that. Oh, no.
What?
Get on there.
What? Hey, what?
Okay. Time to get the last item
What?
we can get at this point. Advertising brochure. While the war raged on, life continued back home and brands still advertised their products. Naturally, soldiers were used to promote brand image and boost sales. This brochure was advertising war bonds to help the government finance the war effort. And then you should get that stuff back, but you never got it back.
Oh, merci.
Okay, can you help me? Thank you. We did it. And here's the last item, collectible. Active Service Paybook. A paybook belonging to a British soldier. It also contained practical details such as a last will and testament form, as well as the names and addresses of close relatives to contact in the event of death. The book also served as a regulations guide to good conduct, advising men, in this new experience you may find temptations both in wine and women. You must entirely resist both. Yeah.
What?
And now comes my favorite boss fight in this game. Because it's very creatively done. keep us on. Still love the voice lines.
For that smash!
Come on, throw your grenade. Okay, I think I should have
For that smash!
my question always is, how is he still alive after that? But who cares?
Aus den Gräben!
Aus den Gräben. Ja.
Yeah.
Come on, throw your nades. And this boss fight is over. And that is how we beat Chapter 1. Chapter 1 took us now, with the last episode, about 1.5 hours. And that's the same with the next 3 chapters. So I would say...
Anna was training to be a veterinarian when the war broke
Let's
out.
wait for a second.
The Germans were only 20 miles from Paris when she received a letter from her father. He was in good health, but implored her not to return home to Belgium until the war's end. Patience, however, was not one of Anna's strong suits.
So, I think we still have about 4.5 hours to go for this game. I would say the game has like 6 hours of gameplay. If you play it for the first time, even a bit longer, because you have to figure out stuff first, but I hope you enjoyed it. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.